Okay, Dad. People are asking about different books and whether they should be in the Bible. What do we do with that?
I mean, like the Book of Enoch, Book of Jasher,
St. Thomas. Yeah.
the Gospel of Thomas. Well, first of all, we have to clarify something. God marks he marks his will. He marks what a Christian is. When I say marks, there's something he does in a person who becomes a Christian. He marks the prophets. He marked the apostles. So if a person came to me and said that he was a prophet, I'd ask him, what are your signs? I've actually had people say that. And they look at me funny. There's been actually about half a dozen of them in 50 years of ministry. I said, if you don't know what your signs are from the Lord, you can't be a prophet. Now, we can get into that whole issue of prophets, but that's not really your question. God marks the books of the Bible that are in the Bible. There are books that are good literature. Book of Maccabees, First Maccabees. It's great history. Second Maccabees, maybe not so much. Other books like Bell and the Dragon and Susanna, they're not in the scriptures. They weren't in the Hebrew Bible. Book of Enoch is not a marked book. Now, when I say that, let's understand. It doesn't mean it's not a good book to read. It may or may not be. But God gave his word. See, we're thinking, well, if it has a Bible title, if you put a name on it that sounds biblical, then it's up to the church to decide or something like that. The church didn't decide which books are in the Bible. God, we're told, there's a verse, Hebrew 1:1 writes, God who at sundry times in diverse manners, in other words, at different times, and in a variety of different ways of his choosing, spoke unto the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken unto us by his Son. In the Greek, see, our word speak, in English can't convey what I'm about to say, but in the Greek, spoke unto the fathers by the prophets. That particular speaking, that verb, means he spoke over a long period of time. But note, he didn't speak to Israel. He spoke to the prophets of Israel only. After these last days spoken unto us by his Son. Through his Son, the apostles wrote the New Testament. God marked those books. Now, right now, and maybe at a later time, we can get into what the signs of a biblical book are. For example, the book of Esther never mentions God, never mentions a prophet, or the word prophet. But it's marked. It's marked as a book of scripture. And who does the marking? God does. Because the Bible is a supernaturally endowed book. We think that because it sounds religious, that maybe there are a lot of books like that somebody just didn't vote right one time and didn't put it in the Bible. The church never did that. The church, of course, is going to want to know what books are in the scriptures. The prophets were men sent by God, and when they spoke, one of the signs of a prophet was he was 100% accurate. If he made one mistake, he's not a prophet of the Lord. Deuteronomy 18. He spoke, and it came to pass. Now, the apostles were the same. There were additional signs of them too. Now, both prophets and apostles had signs. Every book in this Bible is marked. In fact, in our seminary, we go through the book of Esther. And the book of Esther never mentions God, as I just said, never mentions the word prophet. And yet it's in the canon, the word canon, C-A-N-O-N, not two N's, means the books that are in the Bible. So on a final exam, I asked the men, in the book of Esther, or rather tell me, how the Jews knew that that was from the Lord and not just another writing of men. And note what I'm saying here. Anybody can slap a title on a book and make it sound religious. If a person comes to me and says, well, they're an apostle or they're a prophet, that means I and my wife have to obey them. And I'm not gonna. I'm not going to because they don't have the signs of the Lord. Somebody can come and write a book and say, that should have been in the Bible. That means I have to obey it. I'm not gonna. The Bible, the canon was closed. Book of the Apocalypse or Revelation was the last marked by God, not by men, but by God. So what we haven't discussed are what are the marks. So I'm trying to introduce people to the idea that this is a supernaturally marked set of books. And they were put together later on. The marked books, however, the Jews put the ones in the Hebrew and the Aramaic. And then the apostles, they had those marked from the Lord. So again, I want people to understand the book of Enoch is not marked. It doesn't have the signs of a prophet. That doesn't mean it's not a great book to read. It may or may not be. Susanna, I seen some of the comments. What about Daniel and the dragon? That's from the book Bel and the Dragon. That is not a book of scripture. It's not. The Jews did not have that in the biblical Hebrew book. Later on, the Council of Trent and the Roman Catholic Church put it in there, but that's another issue. But that's 1,500 years after the Hebrew, and that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, not really. So again, just let's get used to the idea. God marks, for example, what a marriage is. God marks what a husband and wife are. God marks what an elder, what a minister, and what a deacon are. God marks what a church is. You know, there's all kinds of people getting together, and they say, well, I got a church now. Well, I'm not saying they don't have a good gathering of Christians, but has God approved that entity called ecclesia? Is it marked from the Lord? And the same is true with the scriptures.